and welcome to this week's edition of Safe Money Mindset, the show dedicated to helping you defend your wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have two members from Quest Commonwealth. We have Jeff Perry, who is the co-owner, and Rick Williams, senior retirement planner. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the primary reasons why you want to defend your wealth and the foundation of any good financial plan. So we're so glad that you're joining us. Rick and Jeff, it's great to be here with you once again.
Well, thank you, and it's great to be here. We're excited.
Always good to be back, Kristen.
I know, likewise. Well, you've put together another fabulous show for our viewers at home. We are talking today all about estate planning, and estate planning is by far one of the most loving things that you can ever do for those that you are going to leave behind. And we know that it's never fun to think about no longer being on this earth, but the reality is you cannot afford not to engage in estate planning. We're going to talk about that today and give you some hope. We know that this is an area that often, guys, can cause a lot of people stress. It can create a lot of overwhelm, but it doesn't have to be that way.
No, not by any means. I mean, estate planning is more than just drafting a will. I mean, if we look at in the Detroit area, Aretha Franklin, hundreds of millions of dollars her estate was worth, and she didn't have a will or a trust.
It's amazing how many famous people are in that spot, right? You can rattle off a whole list of them.
100%. So it's a comprehensive approach that includes more than just a trust or a will. It includes power of attorney, medical power of attorney, beneficiary designations, those type of things, and even tax planning. Like, how am I going to transfer my assets when I die? And we have people all the time that come in and say, look, my kids are going to be okay. I want to spend all my money, but they still have a home or they have real estate that they need to protect. And so by setting up an estate plan, and as you stated in the introduction, it is the foundation for any good financial plan. And if your current advisor or financial professional hasn't spoken to you about this, they're doing you a disservice.
Absolutely. And I know one of the things that really sets you all apart, and you in particular, Rick, you shared with me that since 2006, how many estate plans have you written for
Well over 500 I've been involved in working on estate plans, whether it's corporations, whether it's business succession, whether it's individuals. And I mean, the importance of estate planning can't be overstated by any means. And it secures your financial legacy, whatever you want that to look like.
And you get to decide.
You get to decide. You get to decide how you want your assets dispersed. And there's reasons for that, because if you have a spendthrift child or something like that, and you want to control that, and even I remember one financial estate plan that I did for a lady. She had one child. Her son was a drug addict, and her estate was worth $750,000. If she would have given all that money at one time to him, it would have either killed him or put him in jail. End of story. So be in control of your estate when you're gone.
For sure. Well, I know there's a lot of myths out there and misconceptions regarding estate planning. And Jeff, I'd love to hear some that you are very familiar with and that you help folks navigate.
Sure. One of the myths is actually what Rick just kind of ended that last statement with, was what happens when you're gone. Yes, that's true. That's part of it. It's also what happens when you're still here and you can't make decisions for yourself. So that's one of the things. So don't think it's just about like what happens to my money after I'm gone. It's also about decision making while you're still here if you can't make those decisions for yourself. Also, I know we use the Aretha Franklin example, which is crazy because right when they thought they had that set, they found like another piece of paper in a couch. I can't make this stuff up. That had some other stuff on there, and one of her sons went back to court, opened probate back up, and started the whole process. It took years. It took years to figure this thing out. And had that been in a trust, different. And it's not just, I've seen it with family members where my mother-in-law's sisters, she didn't have her house in a trust, and when she passed away, that we're talking about from in comparison to the famous and the rich, like kind of a meager type of estate. And that thing took 2 years to figure out who was going to be in there. So there are those things. It's not just for the wealthy, okay, is my point there. And also, it's not just a one and done. You know, say, oh, don't worry, I set up my estate 10 years ago. We were way ahead of the curve. We're smarter than everybody else. We set it up 10 years ago, and then you never revisited it? Well, are you really smarter than everybody else? So you have to take a look at these things. As things change, you have to go back and say, does this change the way I'm setting this up? What if you got an inheritance, from somebody else? well, it's not inside your trust yet, right? What if you bought another property? Is it inside your trust? So there's all kinds of different things that you have to look at as time goes on.
And the other thing, Jeff, is that one of the phrases that I always say is money makes people funny. So for sure, what you were talking about is, even though we think our kids are getting along and that type of thing, but when it comes to money, there's spouses involved. There's that type of thing.
Lots of family dynamics.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to lay it out and you have to put it in writing the way that you want it handled.
Right.
Yep.
And then everybody has to be aware of the way that you want your estate dispersed.
And there's a lot of information out there. Again, I always go back every episode, I kind of talk about the internet because there's so much information. And then you'll read something that says, hey, you want to make it easy, put your name on your mom's checking account or savings account in the bank. And that's going to be an easy way to transfer that over after mom's gone. And that's great, but what if I did that, right? What if I put my mom or me on my mom's bank account and then I somehow got divorced? I hope not. But what if I somehow got divorced and then my wife suddenly has access to half of that amount of money, right? So like those are the things that people don't think about, and that's why talking to an estate planning professional is really important.
To sum that up too, and I think people think, oh, I'm not as wealthy, I don't need to engage in this. I've heard it said that if you love anyone and you have something, you need to have an estate plan, right? It's just that simple, and you cannot afford not to. And there's so many things that folks don't understand about dying without a will, for example. It's known as dying intestate. That leads to the probate process. Talk about the problems that can create.
Well, probate, whether it's a will or intestate, probate will hold up your estate. And we're relying, even though with a will, we've kind of given a roadmap on what we want to have happen, but with a will and being in probate, it can be contested. Somebody could come in and say, no, he promised me this or he promised me that. And then it's up to a magistrate or a judge to decide whether, they've got enough evidence to make that happen. But the other thing is, not only is it held up, but there's a cost to going into probate. So if somebody ever told you, hey, you don't need an estate plan, but you own a home and it's $200,000 and let's say probate is 5%, it's anywhere from 3 to 10 depending on where you are in the country. But with that $200,000 home, it's a $10,000 cost to your estate that probate eats up. So probate, back in the days, 20 years ago, everybody had a will, and wills were just wills because everybody thought to get a trust, I had to be ultra wealthy. Well, that's not the case anymore. And the trust can also work as many different functions inside of your estate.
Yeah, it almost becomes its own entity, if you will,
it is
right?
its own entity.
It's its own bucket that
living,
you put your stuff in.
breathing company, basically.
Right.
And you can dictate how you want those assets distributed. You can have a generational trust. I want my grandkids and my great-grandkids that I don't even know that are around yet to be involved in my trust.
It's a beautiful thing when it's done well and it's done correctly, for sure.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to get into a lot more specifics today that our viewers need to make sure that they're engaging in as it relates to your estate planning. But again, I think a lot of folks put this off. It's overwhelming. They procrastinate because it's not fun to think about. If someone's watching today and they're going, you know what, it's been on my to-do list for a really long time. I know I need to do this estate planning thing.
Sure.
What would you say to that person?
Yeah, if it's on your to-do list, perfect, because here's the solution right now. It's right there at the bottom of your screen, right? If it's not on your to-do list, put it on your to-do list and call the number, right? Because you can talk to, Rick's done over 500 of these. We have other experts at the company that can talk estate planning with you. And if that's not the only thing, we'll talk about your overall retirement if that's what you want to take a look at. We can talk about taxes if that's what you want to look at. We can talk healthcare, Medicare, all those things. And it's not like Rick and I are experts in every single one of those. We have a team of experts that we engage with. So if you schedule your no-cost consultation with us, we'll put everything in order for you, and it'll be absolutely complimentary. And speaking of complimentary, we have a new book out called Safe Money Mindset. This is your roadmap to a successful retirement. We'll give you a copy if you schedule your appointment and keep it with us.
Wonderful. Jeff, Rick, I'm excited to continue this conversation with you. To our viewers at home, we know that this subject can be very overwhelming, but we encourage you to not put it off. And the good news is you don't have to go it alone. The team of Quest Commonwealth would love to help and serve you. They'll take all the guesswork out of it, walk you through the process step by step, and make it as painless as possible. So again, the invitation for you today, it's for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how they can help and serve you. If you would like to claim this complimentary written financial plan, again, that number to call is there on the bottom of your screen, 888-959-4830. 888-522-4730. Or if you'd rather not talk to someone right now, but you have your smartphone handy, if you simply pull it out, open up that camera app, you can point, click, and scan that QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Quest Commonwealth will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to be diving more deeply into this important subject of estate planning. Stay with us.
At Quest Commonwealth, what we try to do is build an atmosphere within our team that's apart with processors. We have other advisors on staff, and people have areas of expertise. I think one thing that sets us apart is we take a team approach.
We actually focus employee first, because we really believe that if we take care of our employees and build that culture, everything else just takes care of itself. That's the thing I really like about it, is this inclusion and entrepreneurial spirit of our teams, and we really hand select people in our hiring process to make sure that they really buy into taking care of our clients and understanding the huge responsibility it is and when someone entrusts us with their retirement, and to take that seriously.
When we take a team approach, you have a collaborative mindsets that come together to help design a program that will achieve what you want to achieve.
Welcome back to Safe Money Mindset, the show that's dedicated to helping you defend your wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Jeff Perry and Rick Williams. We're having a very important conversation today about estate planning. And, you know, Rick, I really want to have you share your story with the viewers, because I know that your passion for this really stems from what has taken place in your own family, and you are able to help clients with so much compassion as a result.
Well, thank you. Yes, and what happened is my mother lived in Florida, and there were two documents that are always involved in a estate plan. One is a financial power of attorney. What do I want to have happen if I can't do financial business?
If I can't make decisions for myself anymore, become
that type of thing. The other one is a medical power of attorney. And my mother had a medical power of attorney. She was an ICU nurse in Michigan, moved to Florida, didn't want to ever be put on a respirator. And about 4 years ago, she was involved in a car accident, was put on a ventilator because my two aunts were there, and they made an emotional decision, not what my mother wanted. And that's what I stress here, is these are always emotional decisions. If we don't have it in writing, we're putting that onus on our relatives, our family members, to make those decisions. Well, I knew what my mother's medical power of attorney was. She did not want to be put on a ventilator, but my aunts made an emotional decision. I want her on a ventilator. I flew down the next day, understood exactly what was going on. There was no chance for survival. I had the medical power of attorney, had her extubated, and she died just within a couple days later. But my aunts, still in the emotional mode, still don't talk to me to this date. It was the hardest decision I've ever made, but I knew exactly what my mother wanted to have happen. So I was good with it, even though it was the hardest thing you've ever done.
Well, and I think it's important to point out, this wasn't your decision.
None.
It was her decision.
Right.
But you were the one who showed the document that said this is what she wanted, and we're able to carry out her wishes.
Exactly.
But that's hard. It's hard to do, right?
Exactly. So those two documents are definitely, you should have, whether you have a will or you have a trust, is a financial power of attorney. So like Jeff said earlier, hey, I want to put my kids on my checking account. Well, guess what happens if one of them gets a divorce? My assets now become part of that. And then the medical power of attorney takes all that emotional stress off your family members.
So much goes into this, and I know the conversation of estate planning goes hand in hand with one of the number one stressors that I think most people are afraid of in retirement, the cost of long-term care. So I would love to hear a little bit more about how you are able to use estate planning to safeguard and really defend people's wealth when it comes to, you know, having to navigate those exorbitant charges in retirement.
Right, and in most cases, a large portion of your portfolio is your home. So if you go into a nursing home or a long-term care and you're on Medicaid, you fall under the criteria for getting Medicaid. Your home then would be your largest asset, because as a couple you have to spend down to $156,000 in investable asset. As a single person you spend down to $2,000. So by having your assets repositioned inside of a trust or outside of a trust and doing that estate planning. We've got clients that are millionaires that are getting Medicaid right now in nursing homes.
Interesting. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. So talk more about that, Jeff, because I know that that's something that you are passionate about, making sure people have this proper plan in place.
Yeah, so, whether it's estate planning or taxes or whatever, and we think this stuff is for like the super rich, they're just utilizing the laws that are there, right? Why can't we utilize that for everybody?
Right.
Okay, and that's what we're all about. So like Rick said, if you're in a situation where you do need state aid and you have to go on to Medicaid, to get some nursing care or something later on, and you're worried, you're like, man, I've been in this house for 60 years. I really believed I was gonna leave this to my kids and they were going to leave it and I wanted to keep it, and now it's unprotected. Well, there's ways around that, right? So that's one of the things that we do. And one of the greatest things though that you can do in setting up this whole planning, and and with Rick's personal story, and we've talked about it, but I'm just going to put it out there, it's the peace of mind that you can set for your children, your grandchildren, your family members that are actually going to be forced to make these decisions because you can't, whether you're still here or you're not here. It's giving them peace of mind and also communicating that early. Don't wait until after you're gone for them to open up a letter to find out like what, or wait until you're on a respirator to open up a letter that you've never read before or that they've never read before, to find out what you want. You should be communicating this with them. Hey guys, I just built a trust. Here's my medical power of attorney. It's going to be, so-and-so is going to be in charge of that, but this is what I want. And I need you guys to understand that. So don't be mad at that person, when they're going to enact it, because it's not their decision. It's mine, and this is what I want. And so if you do that ahead of time, you're not going to destroy your family. I've seen it so many times, and you think we're different. I'm different. My family's different. I'm telling you, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But more often than not, he said it, money makes people funny.
The other thing, Jeff, that you bring up is the home. And the home, there's another thing. With this true or good estate planning, you're creating tax advantages. And with a home, if you give it to your kids or a beneficiary and it goes through probate, it's subject to Medicaid liens through the state. It's also, you're doing a disservice as far as tax advantage planning for your beneficiaries, because now that step up in basis, let's say you bought your home for $100,000 and now it's worth $300,000, they're going to be responsible for taxes on that. But if it avoids probate, they take it at time of death.
That's
So
right.
it's huge.
Yeah,
That's right.
For sure.
Yeah.
And if anything is resonating right now with our audience, with our viewers, on anything that we're talking about, think about this. You're sitting here watching a show on finance or on estate planning, and you're still listening. There's some voice inside of you that's telling you that you need this information. Okay, but if you wait, it's like, I'm going to write the number down and call them tomorrow. You're probably not going to do that. Once you walk away from this, you're not going to be thinking about it. But right now, in this moment, you're thinking this is important, listen to that little voice. Call the number. We have people waiting to take your call and to hear from you. We can set up an estate plan for you. We can talk you through it. The consultation has no cost or no obligation whatsoever. And if you want to talk about anything else retirement, we can do that too. Or if you just want to get a copy of the book, we'll give you a copy of the book if you keep your consultation with us. This is your roadmap to a successful retirement.
Wonderful. Jeff, Rick, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your story too. I know all of this comes from a deep place of caring and compassion, and that's what we want to provide to you. So again, if you would like help in any of these areas we've talked about, or you have any other financial questions related to your retirement, the offer to you for no cost, no charge, no obligation is to be able to come in and receive your complimentary written financial plan from the team at Quest Commonwealth. To claim yours, that number is there on the bottom of your screen. Simply dial 888-959-4830. Or again, you're welcome to pull out your smartphone. You can scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. More on Safe Money Mindset right after this.
I became a financial advisor back in 1979. That's when I entered the industry. And I've seen a lot of changes over the last 40 years. And at this current point in my career, I would say that I'm more of a retirement specialist and a distribution advisor. It takes a long time to build up your assets and to plan for retirement, but when you're in retirement, you really don't need an accumulation advisor. That was the previous phase of your life. You need now a distribution advisor that's going to help you navigate the years ahead in your retirement. The thing that brings me reward is seeing the client experience relief, knowing they can retire. They have sufficient assets to be able to retire and not have to worry about running out of money at some stage in their life. We do make tweaks. If that's not the case, we'll advise. That's what we are, advisors. We'll advise them that some changes or tweaks need to be made so that their assets can last. But I think that's number one, is seeing a person experience that relief that they can make that transition to retirement. And number two, helping people achieve that is what really brings me reward and satisfaction.
Welcome back to Safe Money Mindset, which is dedicated to helping you defend your wealth. And an important piece of defending your wealth is estate planning. That's what we are talking about today. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Jeff and Rick from Quest Commonwealth. And we've had a really important conversation. We've covered so much ground in just a short amount of time. Of course, there's so much more to talk about in this important aspect of financial planning, for sure. But for folks who are listening today and they are interested in receiving help from Quest Commonwealth and getting their estate planning done, how does that process work?
Well, the process is real easy. You pick the phone up, you call the number, and you say, I want to talk to somebody about estate planning. And with our team, we have estate planning attorneys with us, we have accountants, and we have Jeff and I and the whole team there. So what we do is we listen. We listen to exactly what you want to do. What is your estate? What do you want to look like? Again, up till now, from now on, this is what you want to look like. We look at the taxes, the tax advantage, and shaping your estate plan that reflects on your needs.
And it's, like you said, it's not a one and done thing. This is an ongoing, living, breathing process. How often do you recommend that folks review their estate plan once they have it in place?
Well, one of the things we hear it all the time is they say, well, my trust is 20 years old and it's probably outdated. No, it's outdated because you didn't do amendments on it. As life, as Jeff stated, as life changes, you have to keep up with that. And that's when trusts become outdated. It isn't because that the trust physically is outdated, just your wishes are outdated.
Right.
So make sure that you update that, and we review that every year with our clients. And if something changes, you call us and talk to us about it.
Nothing is more tragic when that hasn't been updated. Also with beneficiary designations, I think we need to talk about that really briefly, because whoever's listed as your beneficiary on your accounts, that will always trump whatever the will says. And I know I've heard horror stories. You guys have seen it too. Talk about that and how, if those aren't updated, what can happen?
That's correct. So retirement accounts, we kind of talk about these, deferred retirement accounts like IRAs, 401ks, 403bs. These are types of accounts that you actually don't. See, this is what some of the complexity of it. You don't want to put those type of accounts inside of a trust. But you want to make sure the beneficiaries match what would happen with the accounts if they were in your trust. So that's exactly right. If you have, an ex or somebody on there and you haven't updated it and you said, hey, I got a divorce, and you update your whole trust, but you forgot, oh man, I have this IRA over here and I didn't update the beneficiary. It doesn't matter what your will or trust says. They're just going to look at that one account, see the beneficiary, and that's going to be it. They're just going to follow that.
Yeah, which I didn't even tell you guys this story off the air, but recently I was getting my teeth cleaned by my dental hygienist, and I was talking about being on the show with you. And typically when that happens, folks are always saying, asking me questions about their own situation. We were talking about this concept of beneficiary designations, and she said, oh, I got a story for you. You got to tell people. She had an old 401k that she'd had 20 years ago. At the time she wasn't married, she put her current boyfriend's name as the beneficiary on that 401k. And it wasn't until 20 years later, after she'd been happily married for 18 years, that she realized she had never updated that. If she had passed away, guess who was going to be getting that money? The old ex-boyfriend who she hadn't talked to in 20 years.
And there's no contesting that.
No, you can't.
There's none. That's a slam dunk. There's no contesting it.
Exactly.
So you just have to watch that. That's why it's good to have people that have your back.
Yes.
And and at Quest, and Rick talked about it earlier. No, Rick and I, we're not attorneys, right? But we have a network of attorneys right here in Michigan. We work with people, but also nationwide. And guys, we've brokered these deals already, so we already know what it's going to cost. And more often than not, the cost is going to be less because Quest Commonwealth takes on a lot of the legwork ahead of the attorney, with the attorney right there, though, guiding and making sure everything's good, right? So think about that. You can, if you don't have an estate plan, you've never even talked to someone about it, you can, go to the internet and find 3 or 4 of them and start, checking out what they do and what their fees are and everything. We've already done all that work. We've already found the ones that are the best ones, and then we brokered the cost. So So if you're looking for that, give us a call. We can do that. But we're not just doing estate planning here at Quest, you know? We're also, a lot of times we talk about how often are we updating these plans. More often than not, people start seeing the other things that we do and they said, hey, you did the estate plan for her, but I also I have that 401k or I have that IRA. Can you help me with that too? Because we are the defenders of wealth after all. So we say, sure, and we'll start managing that. So a lot of times we'll be managing, you know, the retirement and the financial side of the retirement and the income side of retirement, and they'll say, hey, this changed. I wanted, you know, this has changed in my life. And we say, okay, we got to change the investment. We got to do this. We got to figure out the income. But also, wait a minute, we got to go and look at your trust. We got to go and look at your estate plan and what that looks like. We have to look at your power. Do you want to change your power of attorney or things like that?
Or if a child, like a grandchild's been born, a great-grandchild, you want to include them, right? I mean, it's so important to make sure that everyone is on those documents that you want.
I hear so many times, you know, and regardless of what you want to leave to people, that's a personal decision and there's no judgment at Quest.
Sure.
Whether you say, listen, I want to spend, I've had people say, I want to spend every dollar before
I want the last check to bounce, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard that,
Figure that out. I go, great, and I get a little pen, I go, tell me exactly what day you're gonna die, and I'll figure that out, right? I'll model it out. But they say, okay, I'm gonna, whatever my kids will get, but I want to give this much to charity, and I want to spend as much as I possibly can. I've given my kids the tools to be successful. I'm not interested in leaving them a whole bunch of money. And so I go, okay, charity it is. That's when we have it all there. Then the grandkids are born, you know, and all of a sudden they come back and like, wait a minute, you know, we're going to do a little less charity because, you know, the grandkid's going to get everything, right? And so it's interesting. And so you never know what's going to change your mind.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, Rick, I know having done over 500 plans, what would be your best piece of advice to someone watching who's on the fence about picking up the phone today and making this important call and really starting their estate planning process?
Well, you really need to, okay? It's kind of like starting your retirement plan when you're younger, but you need to do it because we never know when, right? We have no control over that. And one of the things that Jeff brought up is, and we see it a lot, people will come in and they have a trust or they have a will, but it's not been funded properly, so it's not even worth the paper that's on it. So we take that extra step at Quest by helping them do that. So take all the animosity out of it. Get it put in writing. You never have to worry about it again unless life changes. And we're there every step of the way. And we listen to exactly what
That's right. And like getting the trust and not funding, it's like having a safety deposit box that you didn't put anything in. You're just paying for it for nothing, right? So if you're interested in taking a look at your situation, give us a call. We'll get a free copy of the book and we'll put an entire retirement plan, including estate planning together for you, and it'll be all complimentary.
Wonderful. Rick, Jeff, thank you so much. I think the message of today's show is we want to help you leave a legacy of peace to those that you leave behind, and there's never been a better time to get that done. So we encourage you to pick up the phone and call 888-959-4830 to start your own quest, if you will, with Quest Commonwealth to get this in order. We appreciate you joining us. We look forward to being back with you next time here on Safe Money Mindset.